Welcome back, my name is Limited Iron, and this is a tutorial on how to set up a first-person character in Unity with the new import system. So first thing you want to do is you want to come and open your package manager, which is in your Windows package manager. Sometimes this will be in project, you want to change it to Unity, and then you want to just type in input, and you'll see import system version 1.2. You might have a later version if you're watching this in the future. And then down on the bottom will be install. Press that and it will close down your program. Just say yes and yes to shut down and restart the program, and to also save your scene. Once that's installed, you can continue. What we've done to the world is basically nothing. It's a fresh world. We've put terrain on here, and we've given it a layer called ground, which you just come and you go add layer, and you type in the ground there. That's for our gravity feature when we add it. Next thing we want to do is create an empty, and we want to call this player. I just want to set its transform to 0, and then I want to move it to 5 and 5. I just like it to be there. No real reason why. And then we want to add a character controller. Set this slope offset to about 7. And we can change this radius to about that. That's just to changing its height and its width, the character controller for the collision. So this is a collider as well. Then we want to add a mesh to it. I just want to change this to a couple of little things just to make it look a little bit different. Move this up again, just so it's just above. Then we want to add a new create empty, and we'll call this one ground. Maybe we'll just call it ground check, sorry. So it's a bit more understandable. Just changing up camera position so we can move this. We want it just to be just at his feet, basically. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah, being a bit picky, to be honest. And that's basically it for the character. Apart from the camera, we want to move that onto the player. We want to reset its transform. Let's go around here. We want to just raise the camera up so it's like that. And that's perfect. Now, that's the character built. We don't need to do anything else apart from add the scripts. So now we can start with the input actions. This is where it starts to get fun. So I will call it input master. We'll open it. We can dock this wherever we want. We can keep it like this, or we can dock it. I like to dock it because, you know, we change stuff here and there. And I might just increase the screen so people can see clearly. So this is the action. So this is how you're going to access it, your first access. I'm just going to call this player. So you can have another one called AI if they're different. Sorry, AI. Why is it doing that? Crazy. AI. If they're different, obviously. That's more advanced. Don't need to worry about that right now. Just go player. And then we want to go into the action part. This is where it starts to get a bit more interesting. We want to change these to these are how we're going to start performing actions with keys and gamepads and whatnot. Right now I'm just going to show you how to do keyboard and mouse because I don't have a gamepad or a controller connected to my computer. That doesn't actually matter. You don't need a gamepad connected to the computer. You just need to know what they're called, the variables. I'm going to call them variables or action types, sorry. Are they called bindings? My bad. Sorry about that. They're called bindings. So anyway, this first one we're going to call it movement. And we want to change this to a pass-through. Pass-through allows, I believe it's floating numbers. And we also want to change it to a vector 2 of type. We want to delete this one because it's not necessary. We want to add 2D vector composite. And we want to change these to what they need to be. So we can rename this to WASD for keyboard control. And then we want to change the pathing. And what a handy feature is the listen function. So we can, for up, we want to just press W on our keyboard. and for down, S, for left, A, and for right, listen, D. And then you can add your gamepad here as well. Also, make sure it says digital normalize. That will you need to have that. That's for so it doesn't just flick over from one point to another. I'm not 100% sure. I need to look that one up. But I know you have to have it as digital normalized. Anyway, I'll show you how to just quickly do one gamepad, and then you can, if you don't have a gamepad, then you can just search it up by doing D-pad, and then you type in what it is, up, and then you can go D-pad, down. You want to go gamepad because that's the generic one, and then you should be able to use all of them. Not 100% sure, I've never done it before, but I believe that's how it's meant to be working. Left, and then we can do D-pad right, and that's it. That's how you do a gamepad. Very easy. That's really all we need to do for movement, apart from we need to add our camera, so our first person look. So I'm just going to call it look. We want to change this to a pass-through, I believe. Yep, a pass-through with a vector 2. We want to keep it as a single binding, and we just want to look for a mouse as a delta. And then for a gamepad, we can look for, I believe it's called right stick gamepad, yes. And that's gamepad. So we've set up both variants. We can easily use mouse or mouse, keyboard, or gamepad. It's not a problem. Then we can set up a jump. We want to keep it as a button. That's fine. We want it to listen for a space. And we can also do a gamepad. So we keep a single binding, and then we press A. Is that a button, or is it called south? Button south gamepad, yes. That's how you do it. That's generally the A button, I believe. Yes. So that's all we need right now. We can implement a fire or a pause, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial at the moment. So that's it. That's how you set up the import master. It's very easy. We save the asset, then we make sure that it's still clicked on. And you come over to the right hand side or in your inspector and you say generate class. You don't need to touch any of this, and just go apply. Done. It creates a script, which we also don't really need to worry about. I just want to close that, sorry. Yeah, so we can open this script. So it creates a script. We don't need to worry about this. We can touch it if you know what you're doing. I wouldn't. It should generate correctly, so yeah, just leave it as it is. We can close that, and now we can actually start creating what we need. So on the it's not really recommended to create scripts on the object itself. It's better to create the scripts in a file. So if we go or folder, sorry, we'll call it scripts. If we create the scripts in this script folder, or whatever folder you specified, it's easier to, you don't have to move it then because you know where it is. Whereas if you create it on the player object, you have to move it out of here, which may break it. I believe it could break it. So it's better just to create the scripts in here. So I'm going to create two scripts, one called a mouse look, and that will be attached to the main camera. And then another one called a player controller. You can change the names to whatever you want there, they don't matter. You can have it as foo and bar, it doesn't matter. So now we can add component, and we want to go look for the mouse look. This is on the camera component. Done. And then on the player component itself, we want to look up the player controller. Done. That's it. So now we can open up the scripts and we can actually start scripting these up. It's very, very easy, very quick. I just want to turn that off. Open this. So now we're in the player controller. No, we want to move to the mouse look instead. We'll do the mouse look first. It'll be the easier one. We want to just remove these at the moment. We don't need them right now. And we need to add, using Unity Engine. Am I spelling that right? Yes. Engine.input system. This is so we can actually access that input class. And we're going to want to create a private input master controls. So this is accessing the input master, or it's getting the input master script, where it is here, and it's giving us access to those controls. And I will demonstrate that in a second. We want to create a private float mouse sensitivity. Sensitivity, yes, 100F, which we can change to whatever we need to. I'm going to create a private v2, or a vector2, sorry, called look or mouse look. That doesn't need initialization. We can create a private float called x rotation. We'll just put that initialization there. And we also want a private transform called player body. So this, so when we rotate the camera, it will actually rotate the body of the camera. So we can save that, and we can actually look at that right now on the camera. Oh, because I made it private, didn't I? Yes, sorry. I want to create that as a public. My mistake. There's two ways we could have done that. I'll show you the other way. It's actually a little bit nicer. So here's the player body with the looking for the transform. So what you can do is you drag the transform of the player body straight in, and done. That's it. Or the way I kind of like it, so it's all just stays in the code, is we want an awake function anyway. We go player body equals transform dot parent, done. And then we don't need to drag in anything. And it's all just in the code. It's easier. Well, I think it's nicer than doing that in the inspector. But everyone's different, so whatever you want. So now we're just going to create a new reference to this input controls. We can access it there, but it's just this is so we can use it in different functions, I believe. New input master. So yep, now we can use that properly in whatever we want, and then we want to go cursor dot lock state equals cursor lock mode dot locked. This is so when the game plays, the cursor will actually be hidden. You have to press the escape key when you're testing to actually hit the pause or stop button. That's it for the awake function. Now we go into, we need a private well, we can do it this way, on enable, and we also need a on disable. This is to stop memory leaks from happening, because when you start the action, you need to be able to disable. This one is to actually start the actions. This one is to stop the actions, because if the action doesn't ever get stopped, it will cause memory leaks, and that will cause problems, and you don't want nothing to do with that. So we go controls dot, so we're accessing our controls dot on enable. Oh, whoops. No, not on enable, it's just enable, sorry. And we want those brackets, we just need to remove this. Done, that's it. And then same thing for disable. Done. Now we want to create a update method, and we also want to create a I might create a private void look method. The update method will call the look. You could just create it straight in the update. I just don't like doing that. It feels weird. I prefer it just to do this where it calls a function. It does, it's basically, if I had written it straight into the update, it wouldn't have mattered. But for me, this is how I like doing it. Anyway, moving on. So we need to access the controls as a read value now. So when the mouse goes up, down, left or right, or left, right, sorry, all over the place. We want to access that and put it into a variable. And we have a variable right here, our vector2 mouse look. So we go mouse look equals controls dot player dot move, no, look, sorry, yep, look, dot, is it dot? Yeah, dot read value, and we want to read a v2 value, and we want to close it off. So how is this getting access? So the controls is the input master, and then the player in the input master, we can just quickly have a glance. So it's accessing the action maps, and then we're accessing the look function. And then we're getting values from either one of these devices, and we're putting it into the mouse look variable. Okay? So we need a float. We need two new variables to actually break these up into, to break the mouse look into different parts. No. Is that right? Yes, to break the mouse look into two different parts, the X and the Y value, so they don't get, so it's easier to read for the program. So we want to go mouse X dot mouse look dot X equal times our mouse sensitivity, and then we want to also times that by times our delta time. And we want to go float mouse Y equals mouse dot look dot y times mouse sensitivity times time dot delta time. Done. We've captured both those values now. So x is this way. Is x horizontal? Let me have a look. X is horizontal, y is vertical. Yes. So x is horizontal, and then y is our vertical, and we also want to clamp that. So we want to clamp our y, so it doesn't. So we want to clamp it to 90 degrees up and 90 degrees down, so the player can't basically bend his neck all the way around. It'd be a bit weird. So we'll do that actually right now, which will grab that X rotation variable that I created. We'll want to go minus equal, and then mouse Y. And that's not clamping it yet. This is what's going to clamp it. Now we go X rotation equals math.clamp. And then we want to give it the X rotation, negative 90 degrees, and then 90 degrees. And that will give it a nice right angle so he can look straight at his feet and he can look straight in the air. Perfect. What's next? We need to actually get the rotation, so we want to go transform.local rotation, yes, and then we want to equal that to a quaternion dot Euler. We want to give it the X value, so we can see float X, float Y, and float Z. So we want to give it our X rotation, and what are you doing? And then 0 on the Y and 0 on the Z. They don't need to be rotating. Yes, that's correct. And then we want to get our player body. Did I do that wrong? I didn't do camel case there. Sorry about that. We want to go player body dot rotate. We want to give it a v3 dot up times our mouse X, so our horizontal. Yes. I believe that's everything for the mouse look. I'm pretty sure that that's it. So we're clamping the rotation. We're allowing our local rotation, and we're also letting us rotate on the horizontal. And these are just the values getting times by our mouse sensitivity and the times at that time. So we can adjust that if it's too fast for you and whatever else. Perfect. So let's have a look and make sure that it actually works. Let's just change my screens back around because it looks like a mess. Perfect. And we'll have a quick play. So if you click on once it plays, whoop, so we can look around. Perfect. We'll look up and we'll look down. So you can see on a 90-degree angle, I'm looking straight flat at the floor, 90-degree out. So that's good as well. And we can move it around. You can see how fast it is. I am on a pretty high DPI mouse as well, but it's quite fast. You can adjust that. And then there's also settings where you can, I think that's how I have my game. There's also ways that we can adjust it so it's in game. When the player pauses, they can adjust it, but that's out of the scope of this video. We're on to the next thing, which is the player controller this time, so we get some movement going. I might just quickly create a couple objects in the scene so we can view a couple things like when he's moving. So I'll just create a cube there, and we'll create another cube. Sorry. Alright, we're back. Sorry about that. I've just created a quick platform just so we can trial out some gravity and the walking up and down. Nothing too special. Just a whole bunch of cubes. The only thing you have to make sure is that the ground layer is on when you do this. Okay? So let's get into the player controller now. So here we go in our scripts, player controller. That will open the script. Perfect. And we want to basically do the same as we did for the camera. Unity Engine.input system. We need the update method, so we'll leave that. Remove that one. And then we want to just start adding our variables. So I'm just going to add all the variables because we don't need to fluff around with it. What am I doing? Private master input to access our input master, and we'll call it controls. Then we want a private float move speed. Move speed equals 6F. It's always a nice number. Then we want a private v3 called velocity, and we will give that no initialization. Private float gravity. Everyone says negative 9.81 F. Private v2, we'll call this one move. That's to access the character controller. Private float jump height. I'll give this 2.4 F, 2.4 units. Private character controller. We'll just call that controller. And then we need some publics down here. Public transform ground. Public floats. Distance to ground. Yeah, distance to ground equals to 0.4 F. Public layer mask, and that's the actual layer mask that we were using before, so I'm just going to call that ground mask or ground layer, whatever you want to call it. These don't matter, their names doesn't matter. These light blue bits, these do not matter what you call them. You can call them anything you want. Private bool is grounded, just to check if we're actually on the ground or not. Done. That's all our variables completed. We need an awake function. We need a on enable function. We need an on disable function. I just want to move the update function from there to below here. Oopsie. And then we want 3 more functions called private void grav. I'll just call it grav for gravity. Sorry. Private void player movement. Oh damn it! I need to fix that. Private void jump. Done. That's all the functions we need. We just quickly do this. Go controls.enable. Need to do this for every script you use input controls on. Controls.disable. Sweet. We don't need to worry about that stuff anymore. We go into the awake function. We want to go controls equals new. Now that those are done, we need to call our 3 methods below. So we want to call grav, we want to call player movement, and we want to call jump. We can go straight into the grav. So we want to check, is the player grounded? That's the first thing we want to check. So is grounded. We want to do a physics property. We want to check sphere. We want to basically create a sphere. Ground, just called ground dot position. So we want to create a sphere at the ground position. Yep. The distance to ground and the ground mask. So if the sphere is touching the position of the ground, I'll quickly represent it. Sure. Why is this not moving very fast? Got it now. So it's going to create a sphere basically just at his feet, and if it's touching the ground, then he's grounded. If it's not touching the ground, that sphere, then he's not grounded. That's basically all we're checking for with that line of code there. So it's very, very easy. Then we can create an if check, is grounded, and we also want to make sure his velocity dot y is less than 0. We want to then give him a velocity dot y equal to -1f or negative. Then that was just so that he doesn't fall like a rock. He falls a bit lighter. Now we want to actually set up the gravity itself. Plus equals gravity times time divided time. And then controller dot, accessing our player controller, we want the move function in it. I want to give it the velocity, and then it's going to, that's the velocity that's basically a move speed. We want to times that by time.delta time. Sweet. Save. So that's the grav completed. We can minimize that to get it out of sight. Then we want to move on to our player movement script, which is even easier. We want to call our move function. And our move variable, sorry. So that's our variable, that vector 3 that we created up here. Oh, vector 2, sorry. No, vector 3 was the velocity. Yeah, vector 2 equals controls.player.movement.read value. So we're reading the value like the mouse with the vector 2, so we can get the horizontal and the vertical. Is it? Yes. Whoopsie. So we're reading the values, but this time we don't really need to break it up as like we did with the... We do need to break it up, but we don't need to break it up because of the player controller. So we go vector 3, we call this one a movement instead, equals move.y, so that's the vertical, times, so move forward and backwards, transform dot forward, and then we want to go plus move dot x horizontal times transform dot right, and that's it. Easy. And then we go controller. We want to access the controller, the move function in the controller again. We want to pass it the movement variable, plus we times by our move speed, and then we times that by times that delta time. Done. That's the new input control. That's the new input stuff. It's super easy. It's much easier than writing if get button down W equals to and then you pass in the string horizontal, and then you do all that. It's a lot neater. There's only a few lines of code, or basically only really one, and then you're doing the exact same thing as you did before. Jump's even easier. So jump, we go if controls dot player dot jump dot triggered. Velocity, we pass the velocity again, dot y, so up and down, equals mathf dot square root, jump height, our variable up top, times -2 times gravity. Done. So that will access our controls, our player, our jump, which is space, and it's checking to be if it's triggered or not. Whether the action was triggered, i.e. blah blah blah. So you can read them by just looking over the properties when you're in your code editor. And that's it. That's our player control. So we can test that. We shouldn't have any warnings. No warnings. Just want to move my camera so we can get a bit more of a bird's eye view in our scene. And I also want to look at the camera so we can see where we're looking at in the scene. What am I getting? Variable ground of... Oh, that's right. Sorry about that, guys. So we want to go to player, of course, and we want to actually go layer mask is called ground, and then we want to grab our ground check and put it in there. So you can do the same as the player body, but instead of going transform dot parent, you can go transform dot find. Is that right? Yes, transform dot find. And then it takes brackets, and then it takes a string, and you can call it ground check. So it finds the child of your object. I don't need to show you. You guys can look up the documentation for that. So those errors should bugger off now. It should be fine. So we can look. You can see in the scene that we're looking. We can remove our mouse. So that's the cursor lock. And press W, S, A, D. We can move all over the place. Don't want to fall off because the gravity is working. So we'll go up my stairs, all the way on top. We can fall off, and we can press space to jump. So everything's working. That's a first person controller with the new input system in Unity. Thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and that like button if you like this content, and let me know in the comments if you want more. Thanks. Bye.